Boo, boo. Nate and Shelby have left the building.
We just finished Frasier, so
we need to talk about that next episode.
Shelby's mind. I have just a little bit of follow-up about Mother's Day weekend last week. I got to the end of the day on Sunday, and, I'd only cooked, 1.5, 2 meals the whole weekend, like for the family. And I was completely exhausted. And I was like, I probably have done less this whole weekend than my mom does probably every day. And I'm exhausted.
Yeah. I don't think I'm cut out for motherhood. It requires a lot of energy.
Yeah. So I guess more follow-up. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks.
Also, I had a little whoopsie with the recording last week. I accidentally cut off the "see you next time" at the end. That was an accident.
Awkward.
One more piece of follow-up. I did follow through on that idea Shelby and I talked about last week for the fiction photography challenge this month. So I had Olivia dress up in one of her old-fashioned dresses that she's wearing for her play right now. And we went to 2 different historical landmarks in downtown Nacogdoches. We went to the Durst-Taylor Museum and the Sterne-Hoya Museum. Both are kind of old school 1800s houses. And we took some photos. I think they turned out pretty good. I haven't really looked at a lot of them, but I was at just my initial skimming. They looked promising. I'll make one of them the show art for this week. It's her standing in front of kind of a spindle, and she's wearing, her old-timey dress, and the whole house is old-timey. But she's texting. So, it's kind of neat.
Lol. Teens.
That's not really what I'm going for. It's not a critique on modern society as much as it's just a contrived scene.
The teens. Always on those telephones.
Generally, I feel like I do more of the talking on the podcast, which I don't really like. But this week seems more like a Shelby week.
Thanks for tuning in to The Shelby Show, starring Shelby.
The Shelby Dean Show.
Written by Shelby, produced by Shelby, starring Shelby.
Shelby is referencing a 90s era Winnie the Pooh VHS special movie called Winnie the Pooh and the Valentine's Day Fiasco.
Oh, it's such a good one.
Anyways, that's a really deep cut. It's a good show. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Well, I got a MacBook Pro, I guess 2 weeks ago now.
2 or 3, I'm not sure. It may have been a while.
And I've been enjoying it. It takes just a little bit of getting used to, but honestly not as much as I thought.
Yeah, you've been using a Windows laptop for the past year.
Yeah, really the only experience that I've had with Macs at all was in one of the computer labs at college. And I only used those at all for maybe 2 or 3 semesters and never as my primary computer. So I thought it was going to take me more time to acclimate to the new computer, and it hasn't been that bad. It didn't take me too long to get used to using Command instead of Control. That's, a big thing to get used to, but that one actually didn't take me that long. The biggest problem I'm having is that whenever I'm trying to quote unquote delete instead of backspace, you hold
Function.
function. Yeah. You hold function delete, and that is supposed to help you
That's like the forward
delete
instead of backspace.
But there is some other combination of keys. I'm not sure if it's command or control or shift or option or what it is, but there's some combination of keys that backspaces one word at a time. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, mess around with it. I haven't actually figured out which combination it is. It's one of those 5 keys on the bottom left.
But I assume you are hitting it accidentally.
I'm hitting it accidentally pretty consistently, so there have been quite a few times where I'm trying to just forward delete something, and instead of forward deleting, I backspace, whole paragraphs at a time. And it always takes me a second to figure out, wait, what's happening? Everything's going so fast.
Now, you do know that Command Z will undo what you just did.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I know how to solve the problem, but it doesn't change that suddenly all at once everything's gone and I don't know why and I don't know what happened. But so far that's been my biggest problem. So not too shabby.
Shelby and I have both mostly used Windows our whole lives. I grew up on Windows XP, and I started using a Mac a few years ago for work, and I started to really like the way it worked as compared to Windows. And then I started getting into video editing, and our workplace has both Final Cut Pro and Adobe Premiere, which are kind of the two big video editors. Final Cut Pro is made by Apple and is only available on Macs, whereas the Adobe product can be on any platform. I haven't really used Adobe Premiere very much, but I just really preferred the way Final Cut worked because I'd had some experience with iMovie, and Final Cut's just like a bigger, better version of iMovie. So I ended up deciding to go with Final Cut. So a few months back, I was really wanting to get my own laptop, and so I ended up getting a 15-inch MacBook Pro. Not just because of Final Cut. That is a big reason why I got it. But I do enjoy the Mac operating system better.
Yeah, in college, I always really enjoyed the Mac. Never enough to warrant spending the money on it. But I guess when you just get a used one, it's not nearly as painful.
Yeah, both Shelby and I actually have 2015 models. The newer ones kind of had some weird keyboard issues, and they're also much more expensive. So we actually both got used ones on eBay. Mine actually has a brand new battery, so the battery life is actually great. Shelby's is okay.
I would go as far to say that my battery life is pretty bad, but the number of times that I'm using my computer away from a desk with an outlet, it's so minimal that it just doesn't matter to me all that much.
Yeah, so both of our laptops were actually under 1,000. We both had iPhones for a while. So then I got my MacBook Pro in February. At that point, I should have known it was only a matter of time until we got Shelby one. There's a lot of integration between, an iPhone and a Mac because they're both made by Apple. And Shelby just saw all the conveniences I had and all the little things that I liked about the computer. And so, yeah, it was just a matter of time before she got one too.
Which I already knew about some of those. Like, of course, I knew that you could use iMessage from your computer, which was extremely appealing to me. There were some things that were really cool that never had even crossed my mind. For example, if I'm connected to Wi-Fi on my phone and I open up my computer, if it is a new network, that password is automatically shared between my phone and my computer. So I don't have to go in and share anything. I don't even have to open my phone and say share with computer. It just...
Yeah, you don't have to type it twice.
Yeah, it just boom, it knows. So just those really little things that, I don't know, are cool. Don't worry. This is not turning into a tech podcast or an Apple podcast. I both don't know anything about tech and also care very little about tech.
This would be a very bad tech podcast because we have 2015 technology, both of our laptops, and I think my camera are all from 2015. So this would be like the 4-year-old tech podcast.
My phone's new.
Yeah, your phone's new, but mine isn't. Yeah, so this would be a very dated technology show. If we were more dated, like if we were talking about like telegraphs and stuff like that, it would actually be cool, but things that are only a few years old are not cool yet. I'm sure there are some good vintage hardware podcasts, but we'll leave that to someone else.
Mm-hmm. So that's my new toy. Nate, what fun toys did you get?
At our last church, when I played in the band, I played both acoustic and electric. Acoustic guitar you can just plug right in and it sounds good. Electric guitars, generally speaking, you need an amp. The amp kind of adds some warmth and kind of adds some, some depth, some extra harmonics to the sound of the guitar. And I had sold mine several years back because me and the other guitar player just shared his amp. He kept it at the church all the time. He had a much nicer amp than I did. So I haven't had a guitar amp for a few years, even though I've been playing regularly. Fast forward, now I'm at the new church, and I've been playing acoustic, and I've been enjoying that, but I've kind of been wanting to get back into electric, but I don't have an amp. And so I did some research. In the past, I've used a tube amp, which if you're really old school, you'll know, like the old style, like vacuum tubes, like before transistors. That's actually what it is in a lot of guitar amps. They are very expensive and they're very hard to maintain and they break easily. So they're kind of a pain in the butt, but they really sound good. And so I was looking to get another tube amp like that. But even used, they're still $300 to $400 to $500 for a cheap one. I did some research and I found out there's kind of a new technology called Nutube, Nutube.
That sounds so dumb.
It does sound dumb, but it's made by a very famous company called Vox. They've been making guitar amps forever. And so they basically have made a new version of the vacuum tube. But it's very little and it's rated for like 30,000 hours, which is a lot longer life than the old tubes.
It's like the size of just a little external hard drive you would carry around with you in your backpack. It's very small.
Yeah, it looks like a pedal. I mean, it's maybe 6 inches wide and a couple inches tall and maybe 4 inches deep. Like, it's incredibly small, and it's a 50-watt amp all packed in there. So I was researching all this new technology. I settled on the Vox MV50 Clean edition, which is just kind of their standard model. And I was reading about all these great benefits. It can plug right in. I don't need a speaker. But if I have a speaker, I can still use it. I mean, it's great. And I was thinking, well, this thing sounds really convenient, and it's probably, fairly expensive. And it's only $220, which I just couldn't believe. So I bought one. I had it on Wednesday, and I was showing our drummer. And I said, look, this like little bitty box is a 50-watt amp. And he just couldn't believe how small the box was. It really is just tiny. So that's kind of my new toy. So far, so good.
Yeah, it sounds really nice. And it sounds nice to hear Nate play electric again.
I am very rusty, just like I was with acoustic.
But you wouldn't know it. Like, just listening to him, you wouldn't know that he was rusty.
I know it.
I know that you know it, but I'm just trying to brag on you. Just take it. Well, I have had one heck of a week. Carrie, my coworker, has taken the week off for some personal time, which she very much deserves, which meant that I was working at the office all week. Typically, I just work 2 days a week. Pretty small stuff, but this week I was there doing everything, and it was just kind of exhausting. Doing that and still teaching was just challenging. In addition to working the normal things that I would do interacting with patients at the office, I've also been working on some projects for Mom, who's my boss. She's on the Texas Board of Chiropractic Examiners, TBCE for short. And
oh yeah, TBCE, everyone knows that.
Everyone knows TBCE. And so I've been working on some projects for that for her upcoming meeting. And some of those were really kicking my butt. All of these projects were just very difficult for me. I was pretty much exclusively doing things that I don't really know how to do and haven't done before, which I'm glad to be doing them. Like, you don't learn it unless you do it. But I was also doing it on a pretty tight time crunch. But I got them all done on time. I was working on making a form to better the board's evaluations of directors. And I got that done, and it's pretty cool. That's something that the board will use for, I don't want to go as far to say for forever, but it's something that will stick around and will be seen, you know, all over the state and for many years. And it's kind of neat to be involved in a project like that. And I'm generally proud of the work that I did with it. But that was very tiring.
That's good, honey. I'm very proud of you.
Well, thank you. This week, the lady that cleans our office was also taking the week off. So I was cleaning the office as well. Pretty much through most of high school and a lot of middle school, I cleaned the office every weekend, so it's not a problem. I know what I'm doing. It doesn't take me all that long, but it is millipede season, apparently, in Nacogdoches.
Yes, the famous Nacogdoches millipede plague.
Plague of 2019. I've heard a few other people mention that they've been having a lot of problems with millipedes, but it has been incredibly severe at the office. There have been a lot of them, but over this weekend, there were just really an extreme amount of millipedes.
I assume it's because you're right across from that big protected forest. I don't know. That's just a guess.
Most of it has to do with moisture in general and how much moisture collects around the building. So my guess is just that there are some spots where enough water has collected during all the rain that we've had.
Just for context, we've had pretty torrential rains this weekend.
Yeah. And even just generally the past month, we've had a lot of rain. So everything's just been pretty wet. So I cleaned most of the office on Friday. Cleaned the bathrooms, the rooms, swept and mopped. And I just needed to go back on Saturday and vacuum everything. I like to vacuum last, just so that everything looks nice and is in order whenever I leave. So I went to vacuum on Saturday because I didn't have time to do it on Friday. And I opened the bathroom door and there were just a lot of millipedes. It was disappointing because I had just swept and mopped all of the floors. And then I just had to go back and do it again. And I'm sure that they're going to come back again, just the same as they did over those 2 days. It was a problem while vacuuming. I'd vacuum them up in a room and turn around and there would be more back again. So I just kind of felt like I was fighting an uphill battle. But I did finish. With how much I've been working, I've just generally been exhausted between the office and teaching. I've also been dog sitting this weekend, which just adds another thing to my daily list. So I haven't been getting much sleep the last week. And I realized today, man, I feel so bad. I wonder why that could be. Well, because I'm treating my body like garbage. I feel like I'm standing out in the middle of a freeway, and there's a semi-truck coming at me. I am also driving the semi-truck. I'm driving the semi-truck towards myself, standing freely in the middle of a freeway. I'm also the semi-truck. That's kind of what I'm doing to myself.
I got not very much sleep last Sunday night, and so Monday I was just like drunk, tired the entire day. I was genuinely impaired. I think that's a thing. Like, if you get so tired, you actually kind of act like you're drunk.
Yeah.
Or maybe not act like you're drunk, but you're the same level of impairment, like as far as driving goes.
There's a Mythbusters episode about it.
Yeah. So I was that on Monday, and I turned it around. I went to bed on Monday night very early, like 8, I think, and slept for, I think, 10 and a half hours. And I woke up on Tuesday, and I was like, man, I feel like a new person. And miraculously, I was able to make myself do it again that night and got 9 or 9.5 hours. And once again, Wednesday, I felt really good, and I could think better, and I was more motivated, and I had more self-control. That's what I notice goes first whenever I get tired, is my self-control goes out the window.
Yeah, mine does too. Any motivation to do anything productive? Absolutely not.
Yeah. So I actually kind of cleaned up my act the rest of the week as far as my sleep goes.
I think my act has gotten dirtier. That's a very interesting phrase, but I mean, I feel like it works compared to cleaning up one's act. My act has gotten dirtier.
I guess so.
I got, collectively, I think about 2.5 hours of sleep last night. I'm suspiciously functional today.
I mean, that's a little, I don't know, that's not quite right.
I mean, like, I woke up to teach all of my classes. I taught them all well. I came home and got ready for church and was actually ready earlier than I usually am. I was not really running behind.
Yes, I was surprised by that.
I sang at church, not as well as I normally would, but not too much worse. I stayed awake through the sermon.
And that's no offense to our lovely Pastor Joe. Shelby falls asleep in anything.
I fall asleep in anything. Absolutely anything, regardless of how much sleep I've gotten. But I did not today.
Well, how about this? I went to the restroom, and when I came back, the top half of you was asleep on the bed, and the bottom half of you was still standing. Like Shelby had just literally keeled over like a door hinge, and her top half was just and not even on the side of the bed, on the corner of the bed. And at one point, like, I called out to you in the bathroom, like I was going to tell you to like go turn off the air or something. And I was like, she didn't really say anything. So then when I got up and finished, I went in there, and it was just, I took a picture of you. I don't know if you heard
You
or
did?
not.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah. Maybe we'll put that in the show notes if Shelby agrees. But yeah, so to say you are surprisingly functional, I would agree, but I think the 2.5 hours of sleep is showing up in particular places.
Certainly, but it's not generally affecting the way that I'm functioning when I am functioning. I'll say that.
Yeah, as long as you're not falling asleep standing up. Other than that, I'm fine.
Other than that, it's fine.
It's like my friend who said their parent was a really good driver, except when they were reading a book. And it's like, well, yeah, that makes you a bad driver.
It's not that I'm fine. I don't think I'm fine. I know that this is unsustainable and unhealthy. I'm just surprised at my ability to go about through the day relatively normally.
Yeah, just to be clear, this is a really bad example. Like, my friend Trey has done a lot of research on sleeping, and I don't know the details, but not getting enough sleep is, like, seriously bad. Like, it'll give you cancer or something. Like, it's crazy all the terrible things it does to your body.
every time in college that I would pull an all-nighter, I would be pretty fine for that first day. You know, I wouldn't get any sleep that night. And that day, I'd be pretty fine. Like, yes, I was tired, but I functioned relatively normally. And then I would get a cold for at least a week. I would be genuinely sick, stay home in bed for a week. So like I said, I do not advocate for these choices that I'm making. This message has not been approved. Now, Shelby, why on earth did you only get 2.5 hours of sleep? Well, funny you should ask. I mentioned before that I was pet sitting this weekend. Last night, I was missing a dog.
Oh yeah, this is a great ad for Nac Pet Sitter, Shelby's blossoming East Texas pet sitting business. So yeah, this is really good advertising. It's like the advertisements where they make fun of the company. Like when McDonald's is like, listen, we're not going to tell you how good our burgers are because they're bad. Come here because you hate yourself. And it's like the reverse advertising.
I would like to state now, before we get into the story, I did nothing wrong and nothing bad happened and everything was fine. I just thought that...
You ruined the ending. You're supposed to keep him in suspense. Like,
okay.
Shelby may have killed the dog. We don't know.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Listen, just hear me out through the story, and you can come to your own conclusions by the end. So I let the dogs out to go potty.
And just to be clear, you're staying at their house.
I'm staying at their house. They have a fenced-in yard. All their dogs are super good.
They're good dogs, Brent.
Yes. I let them out to go potty. I was outside with them. We were out there for probably about 15 minutes. I try to give them time to run around and smell and do whatever they want. Usually whenever I go out, I keep the back door open because the oldest dog, Sadie, she likes to go outside, do her business, and go back in and lay on her bed in her kennel. She is very fond of her kennel. She likes having her own protective space, and that's where she spends most of her time. So, we'd been out there a while. It was time to come inside. The dogs and I came inside. It was just the two of them, because I figured Sadie is inside in her kennel on her bed, as she always is whenever we come in from outside. I did not think anything of it that I only saw the two dogs. Shut the door, and I started teaching my classes. At 10, when I was finished...
10 p.m.
10 p.m.
And it's, just to be clear, it's monsooning outside. Like 2 more inches of water and our house would have been flooded.
At this point, it was not that bad. At this point, it was lightly raining and it was thundering, but it was not properly storming yet.
There was still a lot of lightning because I was looking out the window while we were watching a movie and there was a lot of lightning.
There was a lot of lightning. It was kind of like there was just a light blue strobe light all over Nacogdoches.
I have never seen that much lightning in my entire life. And like I've been in a lot of thunderstorms given where we live, and I have not seen a light show like that.
Yeah. It was not like defined thunderbolts as much as it was just the sky was constantly lit up with light.
Just flashes.
So it's 10 o'clock and I'm looking around and I'm only seeing 2 dogs. Now, there are supposed to be 3 dogs. When I arrived, there were 3 dogs. The idea is that whenever I leave, there are 3 dogs. I started looking around on the couches, thought maybe she had kind of worked herself under some pillows, or was maybe laying under a desk or a table, or hiding behind a chair. I look all over there, nothing. I think, okay, well, maybe she was outside whenever we came in, so maybe she's still outside. Go outside, nothing. So I'm in like full on panic mode. I try to call the owners. Neither of the owners are answering. At this point, it's about 11:30 at night. And by 11:30, it was properly monsooning.
Definitely.
I had been outside kind of walking around the immediate like block to see if I could see her running around or anything. Nothing. And I just basically repeat all of this. I look in all the rooms. I look under all the furniture. I call her name. I shake the can of treats. Go outside, shake the can of treats, walk around the street. It's 11:30. All the neighbors are in bed, so I can't go door to door to ask if anyone has seen her.
Well, at least you're still bone dry, right?
Well, at some points I was walking in water up to my shins.
Which I told you shouldn't be.
I was fine.
Dogs are not worth dying over.
I was not in danger of dying.
That's what everyone says when they're in a flood before they die.
And it's my job to take care of this animal. Like, if I lose her, it is my job to find her.
But not with your own life.
I was assessing the situation and determining my risks, and I determined that it was worth the risk to go out and look for her. I did have to wait for a little bit. I couldn't go out in the peak of the monsoon because the rain was too heavy to actually see. I couldn't see far enough ahead of me to be able to see a dog. So I waited a little bit until it was still raining heavy, but it wasn't pouring quite as hard. This went on till about 2:30 of just me constantly doing rounds, checking in the house, checking in the neighborhood, checking in the backyard, and repeating it over and over and over again. I was finally able to get a hold of the owners, and they were reasonably very upset and concerned. And they were giving me tips of places to look, all of which I had already looked, none of which she was in. But, you know, I checked again anyways every time. They were very confident that she had to be in the house or possibly in the backyard, but most likely in the house, and that she definitely was not in the neighborhood. I was skeptical just because I had looked everywhere and could not find her. So I thought it was very possible that she could be out. I thought it was pretty likely that she was outside in the neighborhood and thought it was most likely that one of the neighbors picked her up and brought her in since it was raining. Like I said, until about 2:30, and I realized, you know what? Obviously, I'm not finding her this way. I've looked everywhere, and I can't do anything else. So I took her kennel with her bed in it and everything, and I set it outside on the front porch, which was under cover, so it wasn't wet. I set it out there so that her scent would be outside. If she was outside, she would find her way back. She'd be able to get in her kennel where she's comfortable, and I would just keep checking out there to see if she was there. I took little 30-minute naps from about 2:30 till 4. I got up at 4 a.m. and started making the rounds again. I knew that I had class at 6, and I wanted to look as much as I could before my classes started. And at about 5:30, I hear some rustling in the hallway. And I knew where the other 2 dogs were, and they were not in the hallway. So I stuck my head down there, and there she was. There was Sadie. She had managed to jump in to the master bedroom, the door to which was locked. So there was no way for me to check in the master bedroom to see if she was there. Well, how did the dog get in the master bedroom, you ask? Well, their door has the little panels. What are they called?
Slats?
Yes, their door is slatted, and they at one point removed some of the slats to allow the big dog to move in and out freely. Well, whenever I talked to them on the phone, I proposed, is it possible that she is in the bedroom? It is locked. I cannot check there. There is an opening. And they said, oh, no, 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 no. That's impossible. She would not physically be able to get in that opening.
Like she couldn't jump high enough?
Like she couldn't jump high enough. She is an older dog and she does have hip problems. So, I mean, I would look at it and think that it would be pretty unlikely that she would do that. Especially just because, like, she wanted to. I'm sure if she was forced to, she could. Well, apparently she felt forced to because she was there. She was there all night long. She was there from at least 10 p.m. to 5:30 a.m., possibly longer than that. I don't know. And she came walking out of that room, walking around like everything was fine in her world. She had had probably a lovely night's sleep. I'm sure she was sleeping under the bed. Not a care in the world. She had no consideration for how she had completely ruined my night.
We need to have an intervention with this dog. Hey, dog, have you thought about the way that your actions are affecting the people around you? We've gathered all of your closest friends and family.
Namely, me, your dog sitter.
To explain to you how your actions are hurting others.
Others being me, your dog sitter. Sadie is totally fine. She was not out in the storm like I was afraid she was. The whole time that I was panicking, all I could picture was this little white cotton ball floating down what was now a river and what was once a street. I could just see her floating down into a drainage ditch. Bye-bye, Sadie.
Gone forever.
Gone forever. And I was not going to be able to rest through the night thinking that that was a possibility. But Sadie is totally fine, and I'm so happy to know that not only is she found and she's home, but she experienced absolutely no trauma whatsoever. I'm very happy about that.
Unlike her fearless dog sitter.
Well, we can't all be so lucky.
This episode brought to you by Nac Pet Sitter. Nac Pet Sitter. Definitely won't kill your dogs.
The moral of the story
Definitely
is that she was
won't drown
totally
your
fine.
dogs.
She was absolutely totally fine.
Exactly. NacPetSitter.com. We won't drown your pets. Because we haven't. That's how you can know that we won't do it, because we haven't done it. Uh-huh. Even when it was real close, we still didn't do it.
Uh-huh. Well, in all of this panic, I turned to my favorite Facebook group, Can I Pet Your Dog? The Facebook group for the podcast.
Of the same name.
I initially got on here to post, help, help, please help, someone help me. I don't know what to do. I'm losing my mind. This cotton ball is floating away into a drainage ditch. I got lots of wonderful suggestions of things to try to lure her out. Places to look that maybe you wouldn't typically look for a dog. And also just lots of words of encouragement of, you're doing the best you can, it will be okay, hugs, things like that. I made sure to keep this group updated as they were all very invested in Sadie and her well-being.
Yeah, this was way past just you and Sadie.
Yeah, I mean, this was a community. In reality, though, there were about 120 comments on my post of suggestions and kind words. After I found her, I posted in the group to let everyone know. And one of the commenters mentioned, "Yay, I'm glad you found her. Go to bed and get some good sleep." Well, as I mentioned before, I had class to teach in now 30 minutes, and there was no such time for sleep. Right after class, I needed to get ready to go to church. Also no time for sleep. So I just commented back like, thank you so much. I'm happy I found her. Unfortunately, I won't get to take a nap. I mentioned that I teach English online. She responded asking what kind of English I'm teaching online. Curious as to how that would affect my sleep, because it was a dumb thing for me to mention and was very confusing, I'm sure. As my response was being posted to her, someone else asked what was in the creepy room with the locked door, where the dog was. They were thinking, it's so weird that they would lock a door. What on earth was back there? While that comment came in, my response went out saying, Chinese kids.
So you were inadvertently racist.
I was trying to explain to one lady that I teach English online to students in China.
That are in the closet and very scary.
While someone else asked me, what's in the creepy locked room?
Cool.
Chinese kids are in the creepy locked room that I teach online. What? Anyways, I thought it was funny. It was a little comic relief for me. I'm still pretty anxious about it all, but I'm just happy knowing that she's okay.
About the Chinese kids in bondage or about the dogs?
Yes. Also, in one of my classes this morning, I noticed whenever I got on, the student's father was setting up the computer to get ready for class. I noticed he was not fully clothed. He was not revealing anything, but he was not fully clothed, which I found to be very strange, considering he had his camera open. But I didn't see anything. I went on, waited for the student to come on. When the student came on, this young man, I noticed, he was only wearing an apron. Like the kitchen apron your mom wears when she makes Thanksgiving dinner, with a loop around the neck and a tie around the back. That was all this young man was wearing. And it was very strange to see. He seemed totally fine and did not act at all like there was anything wrong.
Well, clearly the family is a clothing optional kind of situation.
Well, I've taught this kid many times before, and I've never seen anything like this.
Never seen him in an apron?
I've never seen him in an apron. Not only have I never seen him in an apron, I've never seen him in only an apron.
Yeah, I feel like this should be reported.
I did.
That's good.
I did mention it that, like, I don't really know what was happening here, but this was the situation and it was definitely weird. My guess is that it was laundry day and they, like, forgot about class and just, like, grabbed the closest thing to put on before class that would clothe him.
There's a really good episode of Frasier where Niles has a mental breakdown and then gets naked in the coffee shop. And
That is
then
a good episode.
Frasier has to put two of the servers' aprons around him to kind of like get him out and still be somewhat clothed. That's what I think of when I think of someone wearing an apron. There's also that funny, I think someone maybe gave it to us for our wedding. There was some kind of apron that said, like, if you ever burn the meal, just wear, like, only this apron, and then your husband won't even notice that the meal is bad.
Yes, that was a gift that we got.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Or I guess I should say a gift that I got.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of any other apron stories I know. I'm coming up blank. Well, I guess other apron stories. My dad does have his apron from Dairy Queen when he worked there in college. So that's another apron fact.
My grandmother did not do most of the cooking in their family once both she and my grandfather had retired. My grandfather did most of the cooking, especially for big holidays. But you would never know it because my grandmother always wore an apron. She wore an apron while my grandfather was cooking the meal. She wore an apron while we all ate the meal. And it was just the best, like, show that she was doing all the kitchen things. And I didn't realize it until, I was definitely in high school before I realized, wait, you know what? I never actually see her doing any of this cooking. But she always looks great.
Any other apron stories to add?
I think that's about it.
We'll bring this apron corner to a close. Tune in next week. Apron cast.
That's a very specific podcast. I feel like we could have Jordan talk about her, like, blacksmithing aprons, or Trey.
Yeah, other
Papa.
aprons.
Yeah, what kind of aprons are there?
I'm sure you could get some, like, optional apron accessories. Like, maybe your apron just came with the regular buckle, but you want to get the advanced buckle, the tactical buckle.
When I served at Annie Pasta's, we had the aprons that it's just like a little flap in the front that you kind of tie, like, just around the waist, but there's nothing on top. I'm sure that there's a name for that. I'll call it a waist apron. I don't know. It's like a loincloth.
Okay, now we need to stop the apron segment. Okay, we're going further into the apron.
But accessorizing, I always accessorized my apron by doing a nice rainbow of pins on my apron. I would always keep lots of pins and different colors, and they would always be in a nice gradient rainbow, so it always looked nice.
You're in the pocket of Big Apron.
The pocket of Big Apron? Yeah, we should definitely end this.
Okay. See you next time.